Now let's have a look on the next concept, that is nothing but statements, conditional statements. So over here we are going to see conditional statements. So very first thing is nothing but if statement. Let's have a look of this if statement. So basically when it is used to execute an instructions or block of instructions, and only if a condition is fulfilled, unless and until your condition is fulfilled. If the condition is true, in that case only your statement is going to execute. If the condition is false, in that case we have to use something else part. But for now, just keep in mind, whenever you want to execute and block of instructions, only if the condition is true or only if the condition is fulfilled. Let's have a look on the syntax. So you have to write if keyword, and that parenthesis you have to specify any condition that you want to conditionally check, and you have to give parenthesis, and you have to represent curly braces, and you have to give function body, and you have to close the curly braces. So even if you have only one liner condition, so in that case you can skip this curly braces as well. Now let's have a look on the code. Let's go back to the syntax. Now I'm going to create a new file over here. Let's save the file. I'm going to say if statement. So I'm going to save it with if statement .html. Hit enter, and you can see the boilerplate code accepted over here, and I'm going to include the script tag as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to write the syntax for the if statement. So if you have to write any condition, so I'll write your condition, and simply you have to put your curly braces so that your block of statements can be executed if the condition is true. Now I'll just make the comment of it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to accept or instead I'm going to define a variable over here where age. So I'm going to say where age is equals to, I'm going to say let's take 19, and I'm going to say if age is greater than 18, in that case I want to display a message. So I'm going to say document.write. So definitely my spellings went somewhere wrong, that's why I'm not getting this color intelligence. Document.write, I'm going to say over here, and I'm going to say you are eligible. You're eligible. So that's what I'm going to say. That's it. You're eligible. So let's have a look on it. I haven't given some curly braces over here. Now save the file and hit back to the browser, and I'm going to say open in browser itself, and you can say you are eligible. Some text is being printed, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some changes over here. I'll make it some 11. Save the file, head back to the browser, and you can see nothing is being displayed on the browser. So basically we have handled only the true part, we haven't handled the false part. So now I hope you all are clear with the syntax. If age is greater than 18, if any condition, if the condition is true, then only the code is going to execute, block of code is going to execute. Now what I'm going to do is simply add in the second line also, that says document.write. I'm going to say document.write, and I'm going to say your age is, and I'm going to pass this age as well. Save the file and head back to the browser, and you can see if I refresh the page, and definitely you can see your age is 11, right? Now you can see your if condition is being executed, your block of statements are being executed. So basically when you have some true conditions, in that case you can have this if statement. Now what if I have some false statement as well? So basically we have if else statement. So let's have a look on the syntax first. If condition, some condition that has to be evaluated, some, let's take function body, and after that some else part that you want to execute. If any false part you want to execute, in that case you have to include that false part into this else block. Now some function body, and you have to close the syntax. So basically if else statement goes in this way. So you have to specify if any condition, the curly braces, that is nothing but your function body, some else part, that is nothing but which is going to be executed if the condition is going to false, and that function body, right? Now let's include the same into our code. Let's have a look over here. So what I'm going to do is if age is greater than 18, in that case I want to execute the statements. So let's say I'm going to include in the curly braces over here. Now let's include the else part. I'm going to say and document.write. I'll just copy the same line over here, Control C, paste it over here, and I'm going to say you are not eligible. So let's save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page. You can see you are not eligible is being displayed, right? This is what expected output is. So basically, if the age is greater than 18, you're eligible, and some part you want to render if condition goes when fail, right? If condition fails, in that case I want to execute some else part, and that is nothing but the code of syntax code block of code I have written in the else part, that you are not eligible. So you can add if else in this way. Suppose you want to check true false and false fact. So what I'm going to do is I will be having some new concept, just say this else if statement. Now let's have a look on what is this else if statement. So first we'll have the scenario when to go with the else if statement. Execute multiple conditions based on some several conditions. So whenever you want to execute multiple conditions, in that case you have to go with else if. Now I'll just have this more explanation of multiple conditions. So let's take I want to have if a is equals to 5. So I have to say a is positive. Suppose if I say a is less than, or instead I'll just say if a is greater than 0, the number is positive. If else if the a is less than 0, that means number is negative, else that number is 0. So let's have a look on the syntax that how to write it. So first is if condition, some block function body, then we have to specify else if condition, that is nothing but my second condition. So again some function body, and else block some function body. Now let's head back into the code and let's have the same code again. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to save the file with else if .html, and I'm going to include this boilerplate code. I'm going to include the script tag also, and let's have a code. So what I'm going to do is I will be creating some if condition. So for that what I'm going to do is let's have the same example. Suppose where a is equals to, I'm going to say 5, and I'm going to say if a is greater than 0, that means I have to say document dot write. I'm going to say number is positive, right? Now I'm going to put semicolon over here. Now what if the condition, or what if the number is less than 0? That means I have to add this else if block, and I'm going to say again a condition. So I'm going to add a condition, a is less than 0, and let's check. Let's add some content over here. So I'm going to say document dot write, and I'm going to say number is negative, and I will be adding some default condition. That means if any of the condition is not matching, in that case I want to render something, and that is nothing but some else block. So I'm going to say Control C, document dot write over here. Number is, I'm going to say 0. Let's save the file and head back to the browser, and you can see number is positive. As I have specified it, it's 5. So let's make some changes to this 5. I'm going to specify this as -5. Save the file and head back to the browser, refresh the page, and you can see I'm getting number is negative. So we are able to get the conditions, we are able to get the output according to the conditions, and we are seeing for the positive, and we are seeing for the number is negative. And let's set it to 0. Save the file, and I'm going to say refresh the page once, and you can see the number is 0. So whenever you have multiple condition, you want to check the multiple conditions, in that case you can go with this else if block as well. So this is not the appropriate way to go with. Let's have a look in the next topic, that is nothing but your switch statements. So basically when you have n number of conditions, then you can go with this switch statement. So let's have a look on the syllabus. Let's have a look on the syntax. So syntax is nothing but switch some expression that has to be evaluated, and that expression is nothing but, let's say, case 1. So expression over here, so block of statement that has to be executed, and after that I am going to add this break statement. So what is the use of this break statement? I'll definitely show you. Now the statement 2, that is nothing but case 2, some block of code and some break statement over here. Expression 3, that is nothing but some with some code block of statement and break, and default if you want to have some block of statement. So if some expression is evaluated over there, let's take I'm going to accept suppose number over there. Suppose 1 stands for Sunday, 2 stands for Monday, 3 for Tuesday, and so on. So if user is going to enter number 1, so I'll go over here in the first case and it will check if the number is 1, then I have to display this block of statement. If the number is 2, in that case I have to display this block of statement. If the number is 3, in that case I have to display this block of statement. So let's go back to the code and let's have a look on it. So I'm going to create a new file over here. I'm going to save the file as well. I'm going to say switch.html, and I'm going to get the boilerplate code first, include the script tag as well, and let's start with the switch. So what I'm going to do is I will be defining some variable. So I'm going to say var a is equals to 1. I'm initially defining it with 1. So what I'm going to do is simply I'm going to add the switch statement. So JavaScript is case sensitive language. You have to write switch s in the small case, right? So what I'm going to do is I will be passing the expression as a, and I'm going to have the block of statement, and I'm going to write over here case. If it is 1, in that case, if it is 1, in that case what I want to do is I want to perform something, and that is nothing but suppose I am going to say document dot write, and I'm going to say it's Sunday, right? It's Sunday. So just I'm not going to now, I'll just say case 2, and I'm going to say document dot write, and I'm going to say it's Monday. For the same, I will be copying again Sunday, Monday, I'm going to say Tuesday, I'm going to say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and let's add it for Saturday. Now save the file, and I'm not going to add some default condition right now. I'll just be showing you how the code is going to execute. So let's say open in browser, and you can see it's Sunday, it's Monday, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, it's Thursday, it's Monday again, and Saturday. Okay, I have to change over here. I have to save it to Friday. Okay, so what is happening in this case is the moment wherever the condition is going to get matched. So 1 is going to get matched with this first case, and after that each and every condition is going to unnecessarily get executed, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it, let's take 6 over here. Let's say I'm going to add over here 6, and let's have a look. My expected output is it's Friday and Saturday. Let's save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page, and you can see it's Friday and Saturday. Now actually what we have entered is 6, and we are getting output for Friday as well as for Sunday. So to have that, to restrict that one, so what we are going to do is we are going to add break statement to break the condition if that condition is going to match with particular case. So let's add the break statement as well. Control V over here, Control V and Control V. So what is the use of this break statement is, so basically break is going to stop your execution wherever the condition is going to get matched, and I'm going to pass over here break, save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page. Now you're able to get only Friday. So it's Friday, right? So expected output we are getting. So let's change some numbers over here. So I'm going to pass it to save the file, head back to the browser, refresh the page, and we are getting it's Monday. So it is working fine for us. Now what if I'm going to add 21 over here? Just save the file and head back to the browser. If I refresh the page, we can see we are getting nothing on the browser and nothing displayed on the browser. So user will never get to know what went wrong, where he had made a mistake. So simply what I'm going to do is I have to add some default condition. If any one of the condition is not going to get matched, in that case I have to I have to display something, and that can be done using this default condition. So I'm going to have default over here, and in that default I'm going to write some block of code, and that is nothing but my document.write statement. So document.write, and I'm going to add over here invalid number. Just save the file and head back to the browser, refresh the page, and you can see we are getting invalid number output, right? I hope you all guys are clear with the switch statements, and that is it. So let's have a look on the next concept, that is nothing but your for loops. So basically for loops, it's used where the loop will be traversed a fixed number of times. So whenever you have some fixed iterations, so you sometimes you want to iterate over an array, you want to iterate over some values, in that case you can choose this for loop. So basically whenever you have some fixed number of times iterations, in that case you can choose this for loop. Now let's have a look on the syntax, that is nothing but for loop, initialization, test condition, increment or decrement statement. So after that what you have to do is you have to add this curly braces, you have to add some block of statement, and the curly braces close. Now let's have a look on the statement over here. Inside the code I'm going to create a new file, save the file first, and I'm going to say for loop.html, get the boilerplate code and include the script tag as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to define this var a is equals to, let's take 5, right? Now let's try to define this for loop. To have the for loop I have to write this for keyword over here. Now I have to initialize some variable, or instead of that you can say I'm going to say var b is equals to, let's take a. So I'm assigning this a to be 5, or instead of that we'll start with 0. So I'll just remove this 5 and we'll start with 0 first. I'm going to have this a's value to be initialized to b. Now I have to add some condition over here, and that condition is nothing but I'm going to say suppose b is greater than, suppose b is less than 5. So b is less than 5, and I'm going to say if it is so, in that case I want to go with increment, right? Increment or decrement. So in that case I'm going to go with increment, and now I'm going to say document dot write, and I'm going to say b over here, because my variable inside is in b, the value is inside the b. Now save the file, and I'm going to say execute the code, and you can see 0 is being displayed over here. That means we have made somewhere a mistake. Let's have a look back again in my code. So for b is equals to a, b is less than 5. Okay, I have made mistake while incrementing it. Let's save it with b and head back to the browser and refresh the page, and you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So what is happening in this case is basically we are initializing the variable with 0 value. Now in the next iteration what is happening over here is 0 less than 5, the statement is true, so it will move down, it will print the value as 0. Now it will again go up and it will check for the increment, so b plus plus, so it will be displayed, it will be incremented by 1. So now the b value is now 1, so it will again check for the condition 1 is less than 5, so condition is true, again it will go down and it will print document.write b. Now it will again check for the increment, it will increment it, and it will check for the condition. Value of b is now 2, 2 is less than 5, yes the condition is true, it will print it. Definitely it will happen till 4. Now let's consider the value of b is 4, b plus plus, that is nothing but it is 5, 5 is less than 5. No, somewhere condition is going to get failed. In that case our loop is going to get break, right? So when you know and fixed number of iterations, in that case you should go with your for loop. If you don't know the iterations, then you have to go with some other loops. So definitely when you know some iterations, the fixed iterations, in that case you can choose this for loop. So we can have this nested of for loop as well. To have the concept of a nested of for loop, the condition is same. Suppose I'm going to define over here for for loop again, and I'm going to say for I is equals to, I'm going to say 0, and I'm going to say I is less than, let's take 3, and I'm going to say I plus plus, I plus plus over here, and I'm going to say document dot write itself, document dot write, and I'm going to say I am from inner loop, and I'm going to pass the value that is nothing but I. Now let's save the file and head back to the browser. Before that, let me add some line breaks over here, and I'm going to say br tag, and over here I'm also going to add some br tag. And save the file, head back to the browser. If I refresh the page, and you can see 0, am from inner loop 0 1 2. For the 1 it is executed again, am from inner loop 0 1 2. So every time the whenever increment is going to happen, whenever increment condition is going to take place, in that case inner loop every time is going to get executed, right? So what I can do is, this is the way how we can include this nested for loop condition, and I hope you all guys are clear with this. So to avoid this, what other loop we can use is, you can make some changes into the condition. So what I'm going to make change in my condition is, simply I'm going to remove this 3 and I'm going to say it as b. So I'm initializing with I is equals to 0. I'm saying I is less than b. So in that case I want to execute the same. So I'm going to say less than or equals to. Just save the file and head back to the browser, refresh the page, and you can see 0, I'm inner loop 0, 1, I'm from inner loop 0, I'm from inner loop 1, and you can see the number of iterations I'm increasing in my outer loop, the same number of iterations are increasing in my inner loop. So that this is how we can work with. So it's of your choice and it's of your logic that how can you apply the nested for loops. And let's have a next concept, and that is nothing but some while loop. So what is this while loop is? So while loop keeps repeating an action until the condition returns false. So let's have a look on the syntax. Unless and until the condition is going to return you false, till the time it is going to get executed your block of statements. So while loop is going to iterate n number of times. So basically when you don't know some condition, or when you don't know how many iterations you have, in that case you can go with the while loop. So for loop, when you know some conditions or when you know the number of iterations, in that case you can go with for loop. Go with the while loop when you don't know how many iterations you may have. So let's have a look on the syntax. So very first you have to specify a while keyword, and you have to specify the test condition, or I can say a condition. In that you have to say block of statement, increment or decrement conditions, and you have to close this curly braces. So let's have a look on the code. I'll just move back into my code, create new file over here, save the file. I'm going to say while.html. Now save the file and get the boilerplate code first. I'm going to say script tag over here, and let's try to add this while condition. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say where I is equals to, let's take 0. I'm initializing with 0, and now I'm going to say while, and I'm going to add some condition while I is less than 5, and I'm going to say document dot write, and document dot write, and I'm going to print this I. So I'm going to say I, and you can say increment or decrement. So I'm going to say I plus plus, and save the file and head back to the browser. You can see 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is being displayed, right? So everything goes working fine with us for us, and you can see the expected output as well. So what I'm going to do is, simply I'm going to turn this example to something else. That is nothing but I'm going to change this. Okay, I'll just make again a new example. So where j is equals to, I'm defining to 0, and in that I'm going to say while loop, and I'm going to say default true. So I'm not going to add any expression to be evaluated. I'm simply adding this true over here, and in that case I'm going to add over here if j is equals to, let's take 5, right? If j is equals to 5, and in that case I want to break the statement, so I'm going to say break the loop, break the statement, instead I'll say break the loop, and I'm going to say document dot write over here, document dot write. I'm going to say I want to print this I want to print this j, and I'm going to say j plus plus, so some increment or decrement. Save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page. I need to add, or I'll just comment it out first. Save the file and head back to the browser, and you can see some expected output 0 1 2 3 4. After that the loop has been terminated because we haven't specified any condition. So basically when you have that you want to increment it, unless the you want to break some loop, in that case you can add the break statement as well. So I have added some condition over here, that while true, if j equals to 5, the moment the very first j is going to be equals to 0, 0 is equals to 5, the condition is false, so it will go to the next line. It will print document dot write j. The j's value is 0 in this case, and j plus plus. Now j's value is 1, so 1 is equals 5. The condition is again false, so in that case document dot write j statement will be executed, j plus plus. So somewhere it is going to be 5. So 5 equals to 5. Yes, 5 equals to 5. So condition is true. So it will say break the loop. So in that case, you can use this while loop as well. So when, unless and until the conditions don't know how many conditions you may receive, in that case you can use this while loop, right? So unless the loop is going to return you false, in that case you can go with while loop as well. So there is such condition, or we can say there is one more loop, that is nothing but do while loop. So when to go with the do while loop is, while loop do while loop is similar to the while loop, but the condition is checked after the loop executed. So that means your loop is going to execute once, and after the condition is going to get checked, that means even if the condition is going to return you false, the statement is going to be executed at least once, right? So whenever you have such a scenario that it is okay, the condition is not being checked, in that case you can go with the do while loop. Do while loop name itself suggests first do, then check the condition. Let's have a syntax for the same. So you have to add do over here, block of statement, some while keyword, and in that you have to specify some conditions. So let's have a practical knowledge of the same. So I'm going to get back into my code over here, and I'm going to create a new file. Save the file with do while .html and get the boilerplate code first, include the script tag as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define some condition over here, but before that let me define some variables. So define variable where a is equals to, I'm going to define with 0, right? Now I'm going to say do, and I want to execute some block of statements. So I'm going to say document dot write, and I'm going to say I want to print a. I'm going to initialize with 1. So a is equals to 1, document dot write a, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some increment operator over here, increment or decrement. So I'm going to add this increment. So I'm going to say a plus plus, and let's try to add some while condition. So while, and I'm going to say a is less than, let's take 5. If a is less than 5, then I want to re-render the condition again, unless and until the block of statement going to return me false. Till the point I have to execute my block of statement. So let's save the file and say open in browser again. So now you can see I'm able to get this 1 2 3 4. So because I've said if the I is or a is less than 5, in that case I have to execute the code, and the moment the block of statement is going to return me false, I have to break the statement, or I have to terminate my loop. So that this is how we can execute the while loop, right? Now I hope we are clear with the syntaxes, we are clear with this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it 10. Let's save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page. Now you can see at least once your state block of statement is going to execute, and you will be receiving some output, and that is nothing but some initial value, or it may be the case that whatever statements you want to execute, at least once those statements will be executed, right? I hope you all guys are clear with the while loops now, and let's have a look on next topic, that is nothing but your break statements and your continue statements. So what I'm going to do is I will be creating a new file over here and save the file with some extensions. So I'm going to say break continue .html over here. So let's get the boilerplate code first and this script tag as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to include this for loop. In that I'm going to initialize with 0. So what I'm going to say is for I is equals to 0, and I'm going to say I is less than equals to, let's take 3, and I'm going to say I plus plus. So in that I'm going to say if I equals to, let's take 2, in that case I want to break the loop, so I'm going to say break, right? And if no, in that case I want to continue with my statement, so I'm going to say document dot write over here, and I'm going to say I save the file and execute the same file again. I'm going to say open in browser, and you can see I am able to get this 0 and 1 the moment I'm going to mate with the condition. If the value is equals to 2, I want to break the loop, I want to break my iterations, and we are able to get the same, right? So basically we are reach till 0 and 1. So first iteration I is set to 0, is 0 is less than equals to 3, so condition is true. So I'll move down, I'll check 0 equals to 2. No, in that case I have to print it, and I have printed it document.write. So now in the next iteration I have to increment it. Now I becomes 1, I plus plus I becomes 1. So 1 is less than equals to 3, so in that case the condition is true again. So now I have to check if 1 equals true. So the condition fails again. So I have to print it document.write. That's why I'm able to get the 1 on the on printed on browser. Now let's say I plus plus again, and that situation the I value becomes 2. So 2 is less than equals to 3. Yes, 2 equals to 2. So condition is true. In that case I want to iterate, stop iterations, or I can say I want to break the loop. So that can be achieved using this break statement. So I hope you are clear with the statement. So whenever you are going to meet some condition, in that case you want to break it, so you can simply add the break statement. Now let's try to understand this continue statement. So I'm going to replace this break with continue, and let's save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page, and now we are getting something else response, that is nothing but 0, 1 and 3. Now what is happening in this scenario is initialization has done at 0, that is nothing but I is equals to 0, and 0 is less than equals to 3. Yes, it is less than equals to 3, so it is going to check if I equals to 2. The condition is false, it is going to say document.write. Somewhere we are going to meet up with the condition that 2 is less than equals to 3. Yes, if 2 equals to 2, then I have to continue the loop. Continue means what? You can iterate, you can skip the current iteration, you have to continue till the loop ends, right? So continue is the statement through which you can say continue with my iterations. You can by currently skipping the current iteration, right? So you can continue the iteration, or you can continue the for loop or the loop, but skip the current iteration. That is nothing but your continue statement. Now I hope you are okay with the syntax and okay with the concept as well. Now let's go for the next concept, and that is nothing but your functions. So there are two types of functions we have got, that is nothing but inbuilt function and your system functions, or you can say inbuilt functions, and the other is your user defined functions. So user defined functions are nothing but those functions which are created by user, and system inbuilt functions are nothing but those functions which are provided by the system itself, that is nothing but type of function. Just now we have seen, right? So type of function is going to return you the data type of the variable that you have specified. And inbuilt function document.write itself is a function. Console.log is itself is a function. So these are the inbuilt functions. Now let's have a look on the user defined functions. So what are these functions? We'll try to understand the definition first. uh, Functions are subprograms which are used to compute a value or perform some task. So basically, when you want to perform some repeated task, suppose I want to have some person, if the person is going to say login or click on the login button, in that case I have to display a message, welcome to TQPP. So welcome to TQPP message is being displayed to each and every logged in person, right? So basically I have to write the same function only one. So one function can be reused or recall again and again. So let's have a look on the syntax of the functions. So very first, the syntax is function and function name. You have to specify some parenthesis over here, a curly brace, and you have to statement. You have to specify the block of statement, right? And the curly brace close. So let's have a look on the function over here in the code. I'll just go into the subline first. Let's create new file over here. I'll say control N. Save the file first. I'm going to save it with, let's say, functions. And yes, let's get the boilerplate code first. Include the script tag as well. And let's start the coding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the function. So how to define a function? So very first thing is we have to define, you have to write the keyword called function and you have to define your function name. So let's start with the same. I'm going to say function over here and function name, let's take, I'm going to say display, and I'm going to have this parenthesis over here and have to say the curly braces and the function body that I have, that I want to execute. So I'm going to say document dot write, I want to say welcome to TQPP, right? So this block of statement I want to execute. Now this is nothing but your declaration of function of, or we can say initialization of function, right? So this is the first step while we are doing with, while we are dealing with the functions, creating the function or initializing the function. Now the next step is to call the function as well. So we have just defined it, we have just created it. Now let's try to call the function. So what I'm going to do is I have to give a call to the function. Now I'm going to get, say, enter over here, and I'm going to say your function name. Simply my function name is display and give parenthesis to it. Now save the file and execute the same, and I'm going to say open in browser, and you can see welcome to TQPP is being displayed, right? So what I'm doing over here is I'm going to define some function. That function may give call on the button click, that may give call on some other task as well. But for now we are going to get a simple call. So to call the function I have used this function name and function name with some parenthesis. Right. So this is how you are going to call the function. Let's say I'm going to say control C, control V, control V over here. So whatever statements I have just said, that you can recall the statement or recall the function again and again. So let's save the file. I'm going to refresh the page over here, and you can see welcome to TQPP, welcome to TQPP is being printed for 3 times, right? So basically you can give function call n number of times, or I can say you can call a function on the repeatedly, right? You can call it on button click, you can call it on some event handling, right? So that is fine for this functions, right? So now let's have a look on the next thing called as function with parameters. Now function with parameters is same as that of the function. So simply what you have to do is you have to pass arguments to your function. So what the syntax goes over here is you have to simply say function, a function name, and you have to pass over here parameter, and the block of the statement that you want to execute, that has to be included over here. Now let's have a look for the same. I'm going to get back into the sublime. I'm going to write over here itself. I'm going to say I will be receiving some name, and I'm going to say welcome to TQPP. Instead, I'll say welcome. and that's it. So I'm going to say dynamically I will be receiving some name. So let's take, I'm going to say welcome, say let's say, suppose I'm going to pass over here welcome Pratik, and I'm going to pass over here, let's take welcome Sonali, and I'm going to pass over here welcome Aya. So let's save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page once again, and you can see welcome Pratik, welcome Sonali, welcome Aya. So basically you can pass some parameters to your functions if you want to pass, right? Now let me show you the example. What if I don't pass the parameter? Now, if I give simple call to my function, what will happen in that case? Whether I'll meet up with some errors, whether I'll get some warnings. Let's have a look on the same. I'm going to say display, and I'm going to give a call to this display method, and I'm going to say refresh the page once again, and you are getting this welcome undefined. So basically whenever you are not going to pass the value, in that case your variable will be assigned with your undefined value, right? So undefined is also a data type. We have already talked primitive data type. I hope you have understood what is happening over here. So basically you can pass the parameter as well. So let's have a look on the next thing, that is nothing but function expression. But before that, let me show you one example for this uh, parameter. And in that case, what if I'm going to pass the missing parameter, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function over here. So in that function, I'm going to pass, instead of name, I'm going to pass name with age. So I'm going to pass name with age. And suppose I'm going to say welcome, and I'm going to pass over here, let's take age is, and I'm going to say age, right? So I'm going to say I will be receiving two values over here, and I'm going to pass this Pratik, and I'm going to say age is, let's take 35 over here. Sonali age is, let's take 23, and for Aya I'm going to pass this 45. And display method, that in that I'm going to pass only the name. So suppose I'm going to pass over here Sansa, and let's save the file, head back to the browser. But before that, let me add some break tags over here. So I'm going to say document, instead of this I have to add over here break tag. So I'm going to add this break tag, save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page. Now you are able to get welcome Pratik, age is 35, welcome Sonali, age is 23, welcome Arya, age is 45, and welcome Sansa, age is undefined. Because in this case for the Sansa I have not added my let's age. So in that case we are getting some value to be undefined. You are not going to pass the value, in that case you will be met up with the value, or value we can say as undefined, right? So let's have a look. What if you handle the situation? Sometimes it may be the case user is not going to pass that person's age. In that case default you want to pass, let's take 30, right? So I'm going to save the file and refresh the page once again, and let's say this is the output that we are expecting. So you can see welcome Pratik, age 35, welcome Sonali, age is 23, welcome Aya, age is 45, welcome Sansa, age is 30. So basically whenever you met up with the conditions that you by default you have to have some value, in that case you can pass default parameters. Now what is the rule to have default parameter is default parameters are added only in the end. So what if I make this change? Suppose if I pick up this age and I paste it in front of the name over here like this, right? So what will happen if I'm going to paste it like this? Will definitely with met up with the error. So I'll just go back to the browser and refresh the page. You can see welcome undefined, age is Sansa, right? So definitely we are getting some undefined value over here. So console is the one where you can get your errors. If you met up with some errors inside the console you may get errors, so you have to keep watch on the console. So how to open the console is to simply right click and say inspect, or you can say control shift I, right? So we are not getting some any errors over here, simply we are getting some undefined value. So welcome undefined, age is Sansa. So we have changed it, right? So what is happening in this case is name is considered as age and the value swapped. So basically it is not going to check for the variables, whatever parameters you are going to pass. In that case it is going to consider in the same way, right? So generally whenever you want to pass some default arguments, in that case you have to pass them in the end of your argument list, right? So it is now going to execute well for you, right? So now we have understood what if any parameter is missing, what if you want to handle the condition using this default parameter. Now what I'm going to do is simply showing you one more thing called as an arguments object. Now what is this argument object is, the arguments object contains an array of the argument used when the function was called, right? So it contains an entry for each argument passed to the function. The first entry index starting at 0. The argument object is not an array. So basically the statements whatever I have specified, the very first thing is the argument object contains an array. Yes, so it can contains an array of the arguments. When the function was called, it contains an entry for each argument passed to the function. The first entry index starts at 0. The argument object is not an array. So basically it will be treated as an array, but it is not an array. So all the arrays method won't be applied on the arguments object, excluding your length property. So your length method can be applied to your arguments object. Now instead of me having this discussion like this, let's dive directly into the code. For the same I will be creating a new file over here. I'm going to save it with arguments.html. Save the file. So let's get the boilerplate code first. I'm going to add the script tag as well and let's start the code. So what I'm going to do is I will be creating a function over here. So I'm going to say function add, and that I'm going to pass this num1 and this num2, right? So these are just variables num1 and num2. Simply what I'm going to do is I will be having this document dot write statement, and in that I'm going to display this num1, and for the same I'll be copying the same statement and I will place this num1 with num2. Right now let's call the function. I'm going to say add, I'm going to say 12 comma 13. Now let's save the file and head back to the browser. I'm going to say open in browser, and you can see we are getting the expected output, that is nothing but 12 and 13, right? So what we are going to do is we are simply going to pass some variables over here. We are going to pass the value from this place, and we are going to print them as variable, right? Now what I'm going to do is I don't know how much user is going to get passed or how much user is going to pass the value. So I'm going to read the same value using the arguments object. So instead of me printing this variables, what I'm going to do is simply I'm going to add document dot write, and I'm going to say arguments object. So you have to say arguments object over here, and you can see the color of arguments text is being changed. I'm going to say at the 0th position I want to check what is there, and you can see the 12 is being displayed, right? So at the 0th index we can see the 12 in 12 is being displayed over there, and simply what I'm going to do is check for let's say one first position as well. So arguments object first position, that is nothing but your 13, right? We are getting the same output. So arguments object is nothing but the object which is going to hold your array, but it is not exactly an array. It will behave like an array, and it is similar to array but does not have any array properties. It can have only length property. So what I'm going to say is document dot write. So I'm going to say document dot write, and I'm going to say arguments dot length, and let's print it and check for the output. We can able to get the 2, right? This 2 is nothing but the length of my arguments object. I'm going to add over here br tag, save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page. Now you can see I'm able to get the length of my arguments object, that is nothing but 2. So basically if I'm going to pass over here 13, say Instead of 13, I'll just pass it to 15. Save the file, head back to the browser, refresh the page, and you can see even if you're not handling the parameter, but your arguments object will read the value of your parameters, whatever you have passed. So basically the length of my argument object is now 3, right? I hope you all are guys are clear with this. You can add the for loop, okay, for loop also on the same. So what I'm going to do is I'll just make comment to it, and if you are able to get the length, you can apply for loop as well. So I'm going to say for, let's take I is equals to 0, and I'm going to say I is less than arguments dot length, and I'm going to say I plus plus. I want to print all the integers that are present in my parameter list. I'm going to say document dot write, and I'm going to say arguments of I. Let's save the file, head back to the browser and refresh the page, and you can see we are able to get 12, 13 and 15. So basically your arguments object is nothing but sort of an array, but it is not array, right? I hope you all are guys are clear with the syntax and clear with the concept. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass some variables over here. Instead of variables, I'm going to pass some string format over here. So I'm going to say I want to pass this welcome. I'm going to call again for welcome to, I'm going to say TQPP. Just save the file and head back to the browser. I'm going to refresh the page once again, and you can see welcome to TQPP is being displayed. So it is not restricted for your integers, your string, your boolean values. You can pass any value that you want to pass or any argument that you want to pass.